Welcome to Curbside Conversations, the podcast that parks right at the edge of paramedicine. We're chatting with real voices from inside the profession, straight from events, summits, and conferences. I'm your host, Laura Harrello, and whether you're tuning in between shifts or you're on your way to your next CPD, this is your quick hit of hot takes, raw insights, and a few laughs, all from the heart of the action. So I invite you to pull up, grab a coffee, and tune in to the topics shaping our profession. You're in good company.
All right. So here we are in a special gala edition of Curbside Conversations. And so to get us started, why don't you tell me who you are, where you're from, and what your current role is?
Of course, no worries. Well, kia ora everyone, and kia ora. Nice to meet you. My name's Cam, and currently my role with St John, Hospital St John, New Zealand, as the National Māori Health and Equity Lead Ambulance Services. Quite a mouthful, but it's an amalgamation essentially of ambulance operations and kind of services. Get it.
Oh, and how long have you been doing that?
So I've been doing bits of it for kind of the last 2 to 3 years, but officially in this role, I've actually started in the last 2 months. But I've held multiple roles within the organisation, kind of doing bits and pieces of the current role that I'm in now. But this time I'm now full-time as of 2 months.
Oh, congratulations. Thanks. And from what I've read, you are quite the champion for diversity and sort of diversity, equity, and inclusion sort of projects within your service. And I feel like one of the challenges, and sort of shout me on one of the challenges of these types of projects is lots of times people want to be more equitable in their practice, but they don't really know how to get started with it. Are there approaches that you recommend?
Look, I think the biggest thing for me, especially in my delivery, I do a lot of internal training for our paramedics, all of our clinicians and the rest of the directorate. You've got to be comfortable, and the only way that you can be comfortable is to initially be uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
But you need to modernize the context as well so that people understand, lots of the conversations are, as this happened this many years ago.
Yeah.
If we talk about things like colonization.
Yeah.
But if you modernize it and make it fun to learn, then people aren't so scared, right?
Yeah. When
I learned Te Reo Māori, I had no knowledge of it 3 years ago.
Yeah.
When I studied it, you became uncomfortable to learn it. So the more times that you did it and the more engaging and fun it was, the more relaxed you felt. So I think anyone has the ability to provide equitable care, and I know that you do it anyway, but it's just having the confidence. And you're allowed to make a mistake. You never have to reach the end goal tomorrow. It's all about the sort of transformational journey that you complete to get to that point. So, I suppose that making it fun is my biggest thing.
I think that people are so nervous to make mistakes. Right. Often they won't even make a start.
Yeah.
And that sort of actually turns out to be sort of the biggest issue that's where we end up. Yeah.
And it's all on, like we talk about mistrust with patient care, right? Bad experiences, they don't trust the service, whoever that may be.
Yeah.
But it's also the same with learners. So if you create a horrible learning environment, that person might come back and then they'll most likely be on the defensive. So the more welcoming you make it and the more engaging and more fun it is to throw a bit of humor in there, the more likely they're, going to come back because they know they're not going to get in trouble.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I think it's really interesting because as we see new paramedics through, and they're sort of the most educated that we've ever seen, which is fantastic. And they also have the sort of most knowledge of equity and culturally sensitive care.
Yeah.
And they're sort of entering these workforces where they're working with people who may not have that background education. They might not understand those values. Do you have any sort of advice or sort of strategies for younger paramedics when they find themselves in those situations?
Yeah, I think it's providing real life examples, right? If you're an AMBO, in my case, you learn more on, experience. And I suppose when you're talking to senior clinicians, you kind of want to know the ins and outs of different jobs, keeping in mind patient confidentiality, but you want to know, right? It's for your own learning and it's interesting. So the same thing, our senior paramedics, especially our critical care and extended care paramedics, they know that they're in a teaching position. So they just do it naturally. But I suppose, you have to see it to fully understand what it is. And there's a difference of learning things through a university or through paperwork, but putting the stuff that you've learned into action and witnessing it firsthand gives you a deeper understanding of what it actually means, equity, etc.
Yeah.
Especially like if you look at remote areas as well, we all can say remote areas struggle, but until you put yourself in those areas and sit with families and listen to the struggles is when you understand. So get out there as much as you can.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
one thing to just know that they struggle, and then it's a whole different thing to actually see it and to understand what the word struggle means and sort of what specifically are we talking about for these instances.
Totally, because we need to kind of step away from the tick boxing stuff, right? Because you can go, well, I've learned about equity and I've learned about equality, so I've done the requirements, right? But that's the tick box exercise. So you get the real authentic connections and genuine partnerships and understanding when you actually go out there and feel it and experience it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. And our final question for you.
Yes, no worries.
So what is your night shift guilty pleasure? So you're working a night shift. What do you do to make yourself feel a little?
Do you know what's funny? So I don't work night shifts now, but when I did, I worked in Auckland Central, and there's only one McDonald's that fits the ambulance through the drive-through.
Yeah.
And it's the one out in New Lynn. So we would go there all the time, 2, maybe 3 times in a night. Look, we're on a health buzz, but it is McDonald's because it's the easiest thing to get to.
I'm Nadine. I mean, health is about a holistic.
Totally.
That's what you need to get through that. Now. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me.
No worries.
And have a great time at the conference.
Thanks a lot. Come on.